Leading up to the Outlander Season 7 finale, I am pulling together a list of all of my favorite episodes from each season, so this will be my video about my favorite episode from Season 6. And this, of course, is the finale, Episode 8, titled I Am Not Alone. Now, this episode gave us a little bit of everything and all of the goodies that we have come to know and love about what makes Outlander Outlander, because even though we get action and, lots of plot devices moving us forward in the storyline, at the heart of everything is these two and their love for one another. Claire and Jamie falling victim of Richard Brown and his men. In the books, I think, again, everything is so much more like fleshed out in the books because they're so long, and the show really has to condense a lot of the storyline down in order to, produce a reasonable amount of episodes and have it be coherent and easy to consume as a viewer. But something I think is made a little bit more clear in the books is just how fragile Jamie's, influence over his people at the Ridge is and will always be. And this is the perfect example of that. I mean, he has the love and respect of a lot of his tenants, but as Fraser's Ridge continues to grow in the story and in the books, you continue to see that doesn't mean that he has control over it. And that there's always going to be people or something that will threaten his home and his livelihood and him and Claire. There were so many really beautiful moments between the two of them that I think were wonderful callbacks to earlier seasons and parallels to how they shot earlier seasons. And this scene is obviously one of them. It was also just heartbreaking and beautifully shot and done. But I also think the scene where they're laying together, Claire's laying on the floor in their living room and they're talking about what's going to happen and what could happen and what will happen to their home. And Claire says, how many times have you almost died? And that's a callback to the books because Jamie, when he was younger, was told that he had, 9 lives like a cat. And so he's been keeping count of how many lives he's used, essentially. And after they talk about them together, which was a huge book payoff for me as a book reader, and I was so happy to see that scene included, afterwards, Claire has this wonderful line where she says, I never thought that hearing a litany of your near-death experiences would bring me so much peace, or maybe it's just the nearness of you. And I just think that this episode pulled a lot of dialogue directly out of the books. And for me, a lot of the strongest episodes of this show are ones that stick quite close to the books and include a lot of the original dialogue that's just really, really beautiful. And these two deliver those lines so perfectly that it's just like a magic formula that they have, and it works really well in this episode. Besides that and all the sentimental components of this piece, I really loved getting to see some sort of an action-driven scene here. Obviously, in the earlier seasons of Outlander, Claire and Jamie are very much central to wars taking place and major battles in history, and obviously those will continue to happen, but I think there's something different about the earlier seasons and how those were often hand-on-hand combat, using swords. It was just more up-close, personal, gritty type fighting, and obviously with the introduction of the guns and the different, types of battles we get in the later seasons like this one in Season 7, there's not as much action scenes, or at least they're not filmed in the same sort of way. First of all, they're very expensive to make, but also I just think the nature of the battles that Jamie and Claire end up in are quite different now. And so this showdown in their house obviously is a very contained sort of battle, if you will, but we do get to see them work as a team and face an enemy together and use their skills together. And I think knowing that Katrina Balfe was also very pregnant filming this makes it even more impressive to me. There's also the payoff that we get with Brianna and Roger and Jemmy, and confirmation that Jeremiah is in fact Roger's son. That's something that I think you haven't really had in the forefront of your mind the entire time that we've been watching Season 6, and then when this episode comes up in the books, I think it's there's more weight to this scene, but I'm glad they included it because it is really important to their storyline as a family unit, and also reminds us again about the how much they don't know about time travel, something that becomes very important in season 7 where there's so much time travel. This is a great way to remind us all of that, and also bring a lot of Roger's feelings that he's been dealing with under the surface back up to the forefront, because I think what I've said this before, what the books gives you that the show can't is more time inside each character's head where you learn their feelings and you learn their opinions about things and how often they're thinking about them. And you don't get that as much in a show because they're only given, the spoken word dialogue, and it would be very bogged down if they found ways to incorporate their inner dialogue all the time. So this is a great example of how you can effectively bring up something that really plagued Roger and Bree in the books, but have it be condensed into a tiny but effective scene here. Obviously, it was also a wonderful cliffhanger at the end of this episode, and really, really made me excited for what was to come in season 7. They're some of my favorite books, An Echo in the Bone and Written in My Own Heart's Blood. So I obviously went into it with that in the back of my mind and reasons to be excited about upcoming plot, but I just thought this whole episode was really an effective finale, and it gave us everything we know and love, but in a really beautifully shot, effectively written way.